Welcome to Tate Britain.
Well, here we are in the famous Tate Gallery.
In this series, we've been given unique access to some of the nation's most loved paintings.
I do love it.
I think you've got great taste.
Do I?
Mainly because I share it.
I'm Gus Casely-Hayford, art curator and cultural historian.
Isn't this just magnificent?
And I'd like to invite you into scenes of some of the most extraordinary paintings and remarkable landscapes.
Oh my God, it's the same.
All in the company of some very talented men and women.
Part of me does go like, I could have done that.
We'll walk in the shadows of these great artists.
Put your hands behind your back, it gives you more authority.
Rediscovering their secrets and inspirations.
I'm changing my mind about this painting now.
So sit back, enjoy the view, or better still, follow in my footsteps.
I've got my walking boots and I'm looking forward to it very much.
Hand in hand, like Vulcan and Weiss.
Tate Britain is so much more than a gallery. This is a palace of theatre. Drama, comedy, tragedy are all played out in 1,000 vignettes. And for this episode, I'm going to be joined by someone who understands that idea almost better than anyone else I can think of.
Dame Harriet Walter, someone who has said of herself that she always knew she wanted to be an actor. And you sense that in her performances and also in the way that she writes about her craft. And today, we're going into a journey into the work of an artist who understands and loves performance every bit as much. Walter Sickert.
Who is Walter Sickert? Actor, writer, philanderer, deviant, painter. It's hard to say. What I can tell you is at the turn of the century, when everyone in Britain was painting like this, he was painting like this. And this. And this. He was the paint laureate of the underclass and the overlooked. But at the same time, he was famous, successful, and friends to people in very high places. And yet, he is, in some ways, like many of the subjects in his pictures, a complete enigma. Barely there, a shadow.
I can't do this walk enough because I love the Tate. This is one of my favourite rooms.
Extraordinary room.
Packed to the gills with some of the finest painting. So which ones are you?
Well, things like that.
That.
Ellen Terry.
Ellen Terry.
Six, playing Lady Macbeth.
And you played Lady
Yes,
Macbeth, didn't
not
you?
like that. But that icon was in my mind when I played her.
When this is performed, I mean, John Singer-Sargent, who paints this, is in the audience. Someone who may have actually been in the audience that first night as well was Walter Sickert.
You're kidding.
He adored her, wanted in the first instance to be an actor, but as someone as well who explores the idea of light and shade, but
Yes,
of
yes.
being about a sort of journey, a transition between those two things.
Yes.
There's no one better. I mean, let's go and explore.
Great.
According to family legend, even as a precocious 4-year-old, Walter had already cast himself as a lead character in the family's life story. It's almost inevitable that he would become obsessed with the world of theatre. And it's a theme that runs through the very best of his work.
It's amazing. I mean, I know that image pretty well.
Yes, Minnie Cunningham.
Yeah. It's that strange thing of being very glowing and noticeable, but at the same time you feel she's very alone.
Yes.
Which is very much the actor's thing, isn't
Oh,
it?
really?
You're
What, the
very
feeling-
public, but inside you're going, help.
One of the things I love is the perspective that he seems to get. It's not the actor
No.
as viewed from the audience.
It's almost
viewed
from the wings,
Yes,
is it?
from the wings,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I did once watch Rudolf Nureyev from the wings. You just see this slit. You know, you can't see the audience. You've got all the lighting, but it's
Yes.
coming from a different place.
A particular kind of privileged
It really
access.
is an extraordinary POV.
So around this corner is our...
Oh, yes.
This is our picture.
Yes, this is it, yes.
So this is the Brighton Pierrots painted
It's an
in
amazing-
1915.
15.
Yes.
Gosh.
So you imagine the First World War,
Yeah.
it's raging, and it's at a stage where there's a realization in Britain particularly that this isn't going to be over anytime soon, and the costs are going to be huge. But it's the idea that somehow we are part of this, and the performers look out at the audience gaze back. With most paintings, you can gaze in without a sense of being actually part of the narrative.
Right.
But here, we absolutely,
Yes.
we are.
She might be nodding us in on our cue.
Yes.
I mean, that's my immediate thought. Oh, have I got to go on?
We're off stage being invited on, you know, should we go and explore?
Sure thing.
Our first walk takes us south to the Seaside in Brighton. Skipping straight past the sprouting onion domes of the Brighton Pavilion, we're going to start our walk with a view of the skeleton of the once splendid West Pier. From there, it's a bracing walk west along the seafront, past Constable's views of the same stretch of coast. Along the opposite side of the road is Bedford Square, where Sickert stayed while visiting, before we reached the site of our first painting, the front at home.
So did you come to the Seaside a lot as a child?
Yes, I had a terrifying grandfather who lived in Hove.
Terrifying in what way?
Well, so he was ancient and very deaf and very, very sort of Victorian.
In my experience, there are two types of people. Those that get Sickert and those that really don't. Harriet gets him, but why? What is it about the world of performers and clowns that she finds so attractive?
He just feels quite generous. I don't know what he was like as a man, but I get this feeling that he's humane and compassionate and curious.
I think he's fiercely bright, hugely inventive and wanting to constantly be remaking himself. That is just this ferocious energy for life. So he's constantly moving.
Yes, because
finding
you
new
can't sum
places.
him up, really. I mean, he changes, and he's protean, but he kind of seems to react to little scenes and vignettes of life that I love.
It's all about integrity.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and I love that. And he comes down here to Brighton. He comes a few times, and actually this is one of his views, I think.
Oh, look, there's two
Yes.
typical people sitting on a park bench. There's something about benches in front of the sea when you're getting old.
I think he's sort of slightly teasing himself
Do you think
because
that's him?
it's a man of the sort of age that he was who looks very like him, and
Chatting up an old lady with a red
or a
hat.
slightly younger lady.
A
because
younger
he
lady.
then has got married again.
How many times did he get married then?
So I think this is his third marriage to Therese. Walter and Therese. When I come down here, I think of Sunday afternoons as a child, coming down huge expectation, and it actually being slightly sad, and the feeling that you're expected to be happy, but
Yes,
somehow...
it's a bit of a frozen smile.
His proof rock is actually inspired by the idea of this Pierrot, this figure, this sad clown, the idea of loss and memory and all of those sorts of things. I do think what Sickert sought was in part that feeling of melancholy, that there's something which is quite attractive about it.
About melancholy itself.
Yes, yes.
I can see that.
But it's also that he dressed it up in a sad clown, if you make them the sort of end of the pier performer,
Yes.
they're kind of being very valiantly trying to be happy in a sort of rather sad setting.
Yes.
Who was Walter Sickert? The artist who loved the deceit of the theatre, yet whose work was unflinchingly true. He's a conundrum, and helping me unpick his mystery is one of the great interpreters of the modern stage and screen, Harriet Walter. My next walk covers the London route of Sickert's teenage haunts, the time and place where he honed his character and interest in becoming an artist. Starting at his school in Somerset House, now home to the world-famous Courtauld Institute, and going to head towards the Lyceum Theatre, home to Victorian theatre legends like Lily Langtry, Henry Irving, and of course, Ellen Terry. From there, it's north up Wellington Street. Palfrith painted this very same area not long after Sickert was born. 15 years later, the mawkish nature of that scene already felt like the ancient past. After Covent Garden, we head to Bloomsbury, not far from the British Museum, and our final destination, the Cornelissen Art Shop.
At the age of 15, Walter Sickert comes here to Somerset House to begin his education. It was then King's College School, and the school was right down here in the basement, and it was known as the Dungeon of the Strand. And he was brilliant at school, but you get a sense that he gained most of his education out here on the streets.
Sickert is almost always described as English, yet he was born in Germany and didn't move to England until he was 7. And as a result, I suspect he never felt he belonged anywhere. But he always knew how to fit in, being the brightest, the funniest, most handsome person in the room provided him with an armour, a persona he could present to the world. Before he was even an artist, he was already a performer. Knowing that, the lure of the stage must have been irresistible. These were his people.
This is the stage door of the Lyceum, and this is where Walter Sickert really discovered himself. He loved the stage, but he's as much interested in what happens on the stage as what happens around it. That particular perspective that we see in that painting, the Pierrot, that looking across stage, that's what fascinates him, the mechanics of performance. And he must have known out there in that audience were the cream of London. There are people like Sargent, there were the stars, there were the aristocracy. And he sat there on the interface between the two things at the stage door.
Moving through Theatreland, Sickert would lose himself in the billboards and the ads for the music hall shows. His imagination fired with images of performers and fans. Our final destination takes us on to a very special place, not just to Sickert, but also myself.
This takes me back. As a student, I was in and out of this shop. And it's a shop that Sickert fell in love with as a student as well. He would walk up in this direction from King's College School, and it was inevitable that his father would bring him in here. I mean, look at this. And the sense of possibility is just endless. And this, of course, is the great man's palette, red ochres, burnt sienna. For anyone who loves art, I mean, this is like heaven. But I'm here to see someone who's going to bring the world of Walter Sickert to life. this is a picture.
This was taken about 1983.
Right.
His name is William Toms.
Yes.
And he had worked at Cornellison as a young man. When we took responsibility for the shop, when the last member of the family had died, we were doing it up, and he happened to walk by with his wife. And he came in and said, "What are you doing?" And he introduced himself, saying, "I worked here since the age of 12 onwards." Wow. And then he left in his 20s and then came back. So we offered him a job on the spot to stretch canvases.
How amazing.
And that's when we discovered that he stretched Sickert's canvases.
Sickert? Wow.
Because in those days, he mostly would go to the studio of the artist and stretch there.
Gosh.
So he would carry with him hammers and nails and tacks and things and a roll of canvas.
You do just get that sense, coming through the shop, that some of those sorts of new paint technologies that were available to people like Sickert and the Camden Town Group that hadn't been there for their predecessors. And the way in which actual paint impacts art history is something that we don't reflect on that often.
Well, we often argue with the big museums like the National Gallery, the Courtauld. Why don't you put in underneath which pigments are used in each painting? Because they have the answer. And I think they underestimate the interest in answering that question.
Because he came from a family who understood the importance of art, you get the sense that he loved art equipment, he loved paints.
And I think Turner was the same. He was always wanting to do new things with new materials.
Yes.
And we are really more like an artisan shop than an artist shop.
And long may that continue.
Long may it continue.
By the time he hit his 20s, the grand theatres of the West End had already started to lose their allure. Sickert was young and ready for adventure. The bawdy lure of the music hall was calling. My next destination is in the hipster's paradise of London's East End. I'm heading to meet Harriet at Hoxton Hall, one of London's last surviving music halls.
This is very special. Is this like the sort of spaces that you've performed in?
Sort of one night only type of things. I mean, it's got bits of everything. It's got the height of the Swan. It's got the pit as well. And actually, if you stand in the middle, you can more or less contact everyone in the room.
The thing that Sickert really captures in these kinds of spaces, it's not just about the performer and the audience. It's about, you can imagine people shouting things
across at one another.
And the
absolutely,
sort of
that's
dynamic of the crowd.
They're sort of built for everyone to be aware of one another.
Yes.
And I imagine piling over one another and squished up next to one another and stinking and...
Yeah. Well, apparently this space, when it was ram-packed, could fit 1,000 people. You could imagine people squeezed hard up against this stage.
Amazing.
And looking down into the auditorium and just all of those people just sort of willing you to then entertain them.
Absolutely. And heckling you.
Exactly.
Get off the stage!
In 1883, Sickert travelled to Paris to meet the great Impressionist Degas. It's almost impossible not to be seduced by his ballet scenes. And Sickert was inspired, but he had his own vision of what shape that inspiration should take. Where Degas found light, Sickert found shadows. Where Degas suggests the smell of perfumed talc, Sickert's work smacked of stale beer and sweat. And when, over 100 years later, Degas' work sells ballet shoes to little girls, Sickert's world still feels an adults-only affair, full of quick thrills and long-term regrets.
It's sort of rather sort of sad because there's an element of we're trying to create magic, and really there's absolutely no magic here apart from total artifice, and the artifice isn't very sophisticated, but we all so much want it to exist that we're all going to collude, you know.
Yes. But that is the magic, isn't it? He understands how to capture that magic, that you're there, and the smells and the light. And
it's the light.
Yes.
He just gets the light right.
Yes.
And also you can hear. I love paintings that you can hear.
Yes.
You know, you can hear them all shouting.
Yes.
And even actually in an empty space like this, can't you?
Yes. Could you think of what sorts of songs they'd be singing?
Well, they're very sentimental songs. There's one that I had to learn, can't remember the words, but it was underneath the lamplight's glitter stands a little lonely girl, heedless of the night winds bitter as they round about her swirl. There are many sad and lonely in this cruel world of ours, crying through the da-da-da-da. Won't you buy my pretty flowers?
Oh, bravo, bravo!
Oh, thank you.
Between 1885 and the turn of the century, Sickert got married, had countless affairs, and scandalized conventional society with his paintings' unacceptable subject matters. But he loved courting publicity and scandal. He knew it would ensure his fame and income. And it worked. By 1906, he was the epicenter of the Camden Town Group, a group of like-minded English painters who followed in his footsteps, deifying the unconventional and everyday of London. And artist Peter Clossick of the current London Group, an offshoot of the original Camden Town Group, has agreed to tell me all about it.
The Camden Town Group. When you look at the art historical chronology, they actually exist for a short period of time.
Very short period.
And yet their influence is vast. What is it that they do, and how is it that they have such significant influence?
They were obviously coming from what was happening in France at the time, in the late 19th century. And they were, you know, very influenced by sort of Impressionism, but in a much more sort of practical way. I mean, they put the people like Gilman, Sickert, etc., the way they actually put the paint down. I mean, as Sickert said, you know, it's not kippering the canvas with a load of, you know, little glazes, etc., and tiny touches.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, it's actually put on emphatically.
It is about application of paint upon canvas, so one can actually see the relationship to Impressionism, but what it is that they achieve is utterly different.
Well, because of the subject matter, isn't it? The sort of subject matter they're looking at is a totally different area.
Yes.
And people like Sickert had a very limited palette.
Yes.
And he didn't believe in using any more than 3 tones.
Yes.
Which he got from Whistler. I mean,
Yes.
that's where all that came from.
Yes. And what is it that underpins the Camden Town Group?
Artists were not being represented. They couldn't get into the academy. Galleries were not showing their work. So basically, they ganged together. They wanted an audience. They wanted some sort of response to the work that they were creating.
But looking at your work, I can see sorts of resonances that would connect you to the art of that particular period and that generation of artists.
Oh, absolutely. I was brought up around Camden Town, you know, Mornington Crescent in the 1950s. But then it was very much as Sickert would have known it during the Edwardian period.
Yes.
For my next walk, I'm going to be joined by Harriet through the pivotal sites of his Camden years. Starting at Mornington Crescent, where Sickert lived and the Camden Town Group convened. We'll make our way through Camden High Street, after which it's on to the Spartan remains of the old Bedford Music Hall, which provided so many sources for Sickert's work, before finishing at Agar Grove, the site of the Camden Town murders that filled the pages of the penny dreadfuls of the day and inspired Sickert's most notorious painting.
Perfect Sickert weather. So in 1906, Whistler is dead, Degas is unwell. I mean, these are his 2 great mentors.
Yes.
And he's thinking, it's time for something new. In fact, the world is thinking it's time for something new. And he comes here to Mornington Crescent.
And what sort of milieu was he mixing in terms of his social life? Were sort of fancy people courting him and inviting him to things, or was he, because were his paintings selling to...
His paintings always seem to have sold,
Yeah.
and that he seems to be someone who knew how to be in the right place at the right time. And he was always falling out with people, so there were periods in his life when he becomes almost his own agent and he's trying to sell his own work. So he's always on the edge of bankruptcy, of losing his home, and so he's moving studio. But when he comes here, it is a golden period, and he establishes with a number of other artists this group, the Camden Town Group.
Oh, that was from here?
Yes. So this is where he moves.
Number 6.
Yes.
It's divided into flats. At least they know that he lived here. Painter and etcher.
And so much else as well. And some of his best work is done just round the corner in the theatre. You know, these are paintings that are so glorious they could have been painted of the aristocracy.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go and have a look.
Moving on, we're going to make our way up Camden Street, past the interiors and views of other Camden Town Group painters, towards the site of the old Bedford Music Hall.
I used to walk around barefoot in London, in the hippie days, I think about it now. Ugh.
In this gap was the old Bedford Theatre where Minnie Cunningham would have performed. And can you see, this pillar is all that is left now of the theatre. And apparently 1,000 people would pack into this auditorium at its height, and it was really popular. Sickert would come almost every evening. You can imagine him walking,
It's
the very
not
walk
far.
we
It's
just...
very, very nearby.
And now, very appropriately, that this is the way into the job centre.
There's a story in there somewhere.
But it's a gorgeous painting.
I don't understand how that red can be so reflective with that dark background. It's just amazing, and it just makes you think of theatre lighting, doesn't it, really? That is amazing.
The problem with Sickert is, sometimes his life is so apparently salacious that it's tempting to get lost in his biography. But if you want to get a sense of the brilliance of the artist that is Sickert, go to Tate Britain and lose yourself in the painting of Minnie Cunningham. He's a master of the medium of paint, sparsely applied, every stroke and mark achieves more than the sum of its parts. Darks have never receded more, or reds glowed with promise, and yet it's strangely all too human for comfort. Maybe that's why the original subtitle, I'm an old hand at love, though young in years, has been put aside.
September the 12th, 1907, if you read any newspaper in Britain, you'd have been aware of the Camden Town murder. Emily Dimmock, she's a young woman, a prostitute, and she's found in her room with her throat slashed. You can imagine, for Sickert, who lives
Round the corner.
This is absolutely fascinating. God. And he paints this amazing canvas that captures the moment, the Camden Town murder. And it's one of his most evocative paintings. It's brutal and horrible and also very, very affecting.
I've seen this image, but I didn't think it was to do with a murder.
Well, one of the fascinating things I think about this picture is that it's subtitled, What Shall We Do for Rent? And so it becomes universal. It's not just about this murder, but it's about the kinds of sacrifice that were necessary for young women who had fallen on hard times. And this is Sickert saying, this is the cost.
Yes, he's like reminding you behind the headlines. We read headlines, they don't have that impact sometimes until you think of the real person.
Yes. There's very little to prepare the viewer of the age for the shock that is the Camden Town murder paintings. Are they simply nudes, or is he elevating murder to an operatic scale? Prior to this, depictions of murder were cheap, thrilling affairs found in magazines like the Illustrated Police News, almost comic in their melodrama. The contrast of Sickert's work is astonishing. Still, cold and full of regret, it's all too real to take him.
And that is exactly what he's trying to convey here. This is the real cost.
Responsible painting, isn't it? Very morally responsible painting.
And yet, there's every chance that Sickert only titled the paintings The Camden Town Murder well after he completed them, in order to garner some fresh outrage to publicise the work. A touch more notoriety to gild his legend.
So this is the old Eagle. It's still a pub as well. It's where Emily Dimmock worked.
She was a barmaid.
Yes. You can imagine just how it was in that period.
I can hear the barrel organ.
And there's something about those histories, the histories of the working class, that are so easy to forget, but also systematically, so many historians that they seem to want to actually exercise them from our consciousness because they're inconvenient. And Walter Sickert is determined that we don't forget, and he captures them not just beautifully, but majestically, that we remember that these were working girls, but they were human beings.
So, what do we know about Sickert? He liked the night, squalor, and vice, but he was by no means a slave to any of these things. He also had friends in very high places.
Winston Churchill by Walter Sickert. And in this space at the National Portrait Gallery, there are a number of portraits of the great man. But this one, I think, is particularly special. He's not the statesman. He's not the First Lord of the Admiralty. He's not hounded by a black dog. He's something else. He's friend, he's husband, he's relaxed. He's someone that we know. But the story of this begins a long time before 1927, when it was actually painted. In 1899, Sickert, he visits Dieppe, and a young woman spots him. The young man, the artist, Walter Sickert. The young woman, Clementine. And she would later go on to marry Winston Churchill and introduce Churchill to Sickert. And they become great friends. Churchill and Sickert, two deep-thinking men. They paint together, they talk together, they eat together. They strike up a really strong friendship. And in 1927, he paints this portrait. And there are some great portraits of Churchill. But this one, it's the man. He captures this great man in the way that only he could, with a kind of honesty that makes this, in my mind, the greatest portrait of the truly greatest man of the 20th century.
My final walk takes me 115 miles west to Bath. I'm going to start at Lansdowne Crescent, the site of one of his first paintings in the Regent City. After that, I make my way downhill to Belvedere, and a view of Bath unthinkable before Sickert arrived. After which, I head towards the city centre, the setting of some of his most fragile landscapes, and finish at the site of one of his very last works, the haunting vineyards.
Walter Sickert loved life, and he would throw himself into every opportunity 100%. Whether it was friends, whether it was collecting other people's art, whether it was travel, he would take those opportunities. But when he came here to Bath in 1917, he wrote in a letter to a friend, "Bath, this is it."
To say Sickert was prolific is to do his work ethic a disservice. He was relentless, which means that you can still find his work to buy in auction houses all over the country. Now, I'll be honest, when I was told I was going to see a private collection, I assumed it would be on a wall. But I'm rather delighted that David Cullen has surprised us all and brought his collection in the back of his car to the very spot that inspired Sickert.
Oh, God.
Gorgeous to meet you. It's a lovely day as well, isn't it, for it? Oh, wow. It's not something you'd expect to see in the back of a...
No.
a boot full of Sickerts.
Yeah, I brought them along.
This is the crescent that we're in.
Actually is the crescent, yeah. And
Is a wonderful thing.
it's quite a rare print, and I think there's only one or two.
Are you a multi-millionaire, Dave,
No,
on the quiet?
no,
I mean,
not
how
at
is it
all.
that you
Well,
have Sickert?
I've just collected steadily over the years, over probably like 20 years.
Very astutely, obviously.
Oh,
What a
thank you.
treat.
This may be Mornington Crescent or Fitzroy Street.
My God,
I think 1903. I think.
1903. But I just love the way in which he could control tone, that he has this very reduced palette, and yet he seems to just suggest in very moderated tonal shifts, great depth and form. It's a fantastic collection. You have a great eye, Dave.
Oh, thank you.
And
That's
what a
very kind.
privilege to see it. So this is our view, Dave.
Yep.
And that's one of the rather wonderful things about Sickert. The sheer volume of his work allows people like David, and maybe you, to have a piece of history on your wall, or even in the boot of your car.
If you're feeling perhaps a little bit ambivalent about Sickert, you're not sure, I think this 1917 painting of Belvedere, I mean, this will give you a real sense of what it was that he did that was special. He paints it looking down into Bath. He's aware that beyond the city, beach and hill, this is the place where one gets a panorama right up on the top of that hill. That is the vista of Bath that most people would have known. But what he gives you, it's Bath from the unexpected view, from within, looking out at the beauty. And the beauty is out of focus. That inside out, that is the thing about Sickert that is so special. For a man with such a huge brain, dementia was a pretty cruel trick for nature to play on Walter Sickert. And he spent his final years in these streets. This is where his studio was. But even in that confusion, art seemed to be the thing that made sense of his world. He would go to his studio and he would sit there very often waiting for students who would never come, until his wife would tell him teaching isn't going to happen today. Let's come back tomorrow. So this is the site of one of Sickert's very last paintings. And by this stage, he'd already secured his place in art history, but he was still continuing to paint. But dementia at this stage had addled his mind. And you can see in that last painting, perhaps a reflection of the man that he'd lost, a ghostly figure in the mid-ground, disappearing into the distance.
In the end, I suspect that the life of Sickert is all a show. He never stopped the act. A piece of theatre to keep everyone at bay. Here was someone hiding in plain sight. And I think that was by design. I think he left us with as much as he wanted us to know. The art is brilliant, complex, wonderful art. So, don't think of Sickert as that ghost in Bath. Remember him as we began the show, inviting us on stage on a lonely Brighton shore.
So this is it?
This is it. Round about here.
Yeah.
So
I'm
if
here.
you've got your leg
kicking
out, ladies and gentlemen.
And the strange thing is that there are so few people in the audience.
Yeah, there's not room for many, is there?
Sickert trying to suggest that everyone's either at the front or elsewhere, that there isn't much time for
Only old
fun.
people and children.
Yeah.
And then behind us, we've got Europe.
This performance would have had to have happened before the sun went down because, you know, lights weren't allowed on the front and the sound of the bombs would have been echoing across the ocean. That whole sense of possibility of all of this coming to an end. It's not just the sun going down, but it's the moment in which there's the recognition of a whole way of life being under threat. But that is the thing about great art, and I think someone like Sickert, who really was so thoughtful, is he's captured something of us as a nation which is timeless. We're quite stoical in that we deal with tragedy and impending doom by turning our back on it and by playing music to an almost empty auditorium, carrying on. The show must go on.
Is that who we are?
Yes.
Yeah, the show must go on.
Exactly.
That's a pretty sight. That's lovely.